Hello and welcome to another video where today we'll be looking over my top 5 tips to pass your Level 3 Business Awareness exam. Tip number 1, know your exam. For the Business Awareness exam, you have a time limit of up to 2.5 hours. During that time, you'll be required to complete 7 tasks. The total amount of marks available in the exam is 100, meaning you'll need 70 out of 100 in order to pass. On screen now, I've shown the task numbers alongside the marks that each task is worth and the number of minutes that you should roughly be taking on each task. If you need to pause to take these numbers down, or you just need a little longer to look, please do that now. By spending this long on each task, it will take you up to 140 minutes, allowing you 10 minutes at the end to check through your answers. I would strongly recommend allowing yourself this time to make sure you've answered every question and to make sure you haven't made any silly mistakes. Tip number 2, knowing the topics for each task. Knowing what to expect on each task can really help settle the nerves and help you prepare. Although we'll never know exactly what's going to come up, we can at least be aware of what topic will be tested on each question. Let's take a look at what each task is about. Task 1 will test knowledge on different types of organisations, alongside ethics for accountants. So here we can expect to see questions on sole traders, partnerships, limited companies, and then I'd expect to see ethics questions based upon principles, threats and safeguards. Task 2 will be a written task and test your ability to analyse the external environment. This could include a PESTLE analysis. Now remember, as this task is written, it will be human marked by an examiner, and therefore it's important to write in full sentences and not bullet points, unless you're really short on time. Task 3 will test knowledge on business structures, technology and data security. Here I'd expect to see questions on cloud accounting, cyber security and data protection. These will be multiple choice or drop-down style questions, so just take care when reading the question, as for the most part it can be subtle hints within the question that determine the correct answer. Task 4 will be a written task and test knowledge on ethical and legal compliance. Here you're likely to be given various short scenarios on potential ethical problems that may be faced and asked to assess the risk along with the actions that should be taken. Make sure when you're practicing these you write your answers out in full, not just bullet pointing them and then checking your answer, because it will help you with your timings in the real exam. Task 5 will test knowledge on the microeconomic environment and sustainability. Here we'd expect to see questions on the 3 strands of sustainability, i.e. people, planet and profits, along with the 3 pillars of sustainability, economic, social and environmental. I would highly recommend knowing examples of each of these and understanding what actions by a business would fall into each category. Task 6 will be a written task and test knowledge on communication and visualisation. This task will often involve a chart or table of information where you're required to interpret and comment on the result. This may also involve making suggestions based upon the data provided. Similar to the other written tasks, I would always recommend writing out this task in full to perfect timings and practice written skills, rather than just bullet pointing your answers. It's also important to take note of what format the question is asking you to write in. For example, if an email is required, make sure that you do reply in a professional email format. Don't just go straight into writing your points. Task 7 will test knowledge on risk and big data. Here we can expect to see questions with regards to characteristics of useful information, a question relating to the 5 V's of big data, volume, value, velocity, variety and veracity. It would also be useful to learn the benefits and limitations of big data, along with the common sources of internal and external data. Tip number 3, using all resources that are available to you. At the time of making this video, within the Lifelong Learning portal on the AAT website, you currently have available to you the following learning tools: 9 e-learning modules, 3 videos, 1 green light test, and 2 mock exams. Now, the mock exams are an absolute must before sitting your actual exam, as they are for any AAT unit. But the e-learning modules for this unit are also very useful because of the nature of this exam. Keywords and definitions are essential to learn, so getting used to the AAT terminology could provide you with those few extra marks. Tip number 4, using correct revision techniques. Throughout the other level 3 exams, there are no written tasks, and the majority of marks have come down to calculations or double entry. However, in this exam, there are no calculations and no double entry. It's now going to be down to learning, understanding, retaining, applying, and articulating what you've learned throughout the unit. And because of that, it may be that you need to look at revising slightly differently to what you've done before. I would look to use flashcards for key terms. When answering multiple choice questions, I would write down next to the points that are incorrect why they're incorrect and why the one you've selected you believe to be correct is correct. I would practice writing written questions out in full and actually using your study material to help you supplement your answers initially to make sure you're hitting all the points you can before checking the answer. When reviewing your written answers, try to identify the driver for why you're losing marks. Is it that you're not covering enough points? Is it that you're not explaining your points in detail? Is it that you're not including the impact on the business or person? Is it that you're not including key areas that it gives you within the question? Tip number 5, use the examiner's report to your advantage. This has now been released for business awareness and can be found on the Lifelong Learning portal. I would strongly encourage that you take a look at the full document, but the key points that I would take away from the report are as follows. Difficulty at applying PESTLE to a given scenario to analyse the external environment, and alongside this identifying relevant threats and then explaining why these are threats and what appropriate actions can be taken to address them. I think on this it's that people are being too brief with their answers. Although it's important to keep your answers concise, it's more important to explain your answers, be able to supply a valid argument or reasons for your points, and offer solutions. It has also been noted as a whole that written tasks have seen a weaker performance. No surprises there. But some specific areas in terms of exam technique for the written questions that I thought were key were ineffectively interpreting the question requirements with students not addressing the specific question asked. Where a requirement is asking for multiple points to be addressed, answers are not providing a complete response that covers all of these points. Students should be reminded to pay attention to the number of marks available and therefore the number of points and breadth of response which is required. Making general points which are not specific to the scenario given. Students must avoid making assumptions about the environmental conditions and focus on the information provided in the scenario. And lastly, providing a list of knowledge points rather than applying their knowledge effectively to the scenario, limiting the number of marks that can be awarded. Now, I picked up on these points specifically because they all really relate to the same point, just with subtle differences. To summarise, what they're finding is that students are actually writing enough, for the most part, but they're not writing about the right things. And as someone who has marked so many mock papers, I can say with confidence that this is what I've found most common. Students write what they want to write, not what the question is actually asking. If you miss the point or specific information given within the question, i.e. giving generic answers, your marks will be extremely limited. The best way to resolve this is practicing writing out your written answer in full and, if possible, getting someone else to mark it against the mark scheme for you rather than doing it yourself. That way you'll get a far more realistic mark. And that wraps up my 5 top tips for passing business awareness. Best of luck with your up-and-coming exam, and I hope you found this video useful. And remember, if you have, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more AAT content. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.